That's how it starts, doesn't it? With one denial whispered more to yourself than anyone else. A promise made in the dark, after your heartbeat slows and you try to forget the taste of someone's breath against your skin. But some promises aren't meant to be kept, not because you don't want to, but because some temptations don't disappear. They hide, they wait, and then they knock when you're most vulnerable. His name isn't important. Not yet. What matters is how he looked at me that night. It was a Thursday, late enough that the office was half dark and almost everyone had gone home. The cleaning crew hadn't even started yet. The city lights spilled through the window blinds, striping the carpet with soft golden lines, turning the quiet room into something almost cinematic. I was still at my desk, headphones in, pretending I was focused. But my attention was elsewhere. He walked past my cubicle, paused, then stepped back. "Still here?" he asked, his voice a low rumble, casual but too smooth. He leaned on the divider, sleeves rolled up, tie loose, forearms tanned and veined like he'd just stepped out of a summer memory. I smiled without looking up. "Deadlines. You know how it is." He gave a half laugh. That sound, God, it had started to live in my head. Not loud, just enough to make my stomach flip. I could feel him watching me. Not in the creepy way. In that very specific, very dangerous way that says, "I notice you." He lingered. I should have ignored it. Should have closed my laptop and gone home. But I didn't. Because something in me liked the way the silence stretched between us. I finally looked up. Met his eyes. He didn't look away. "Need help?" he asked, his voice quieter now. Closer. I didn't need help. But I said, "Sure." He stepped inside my cubicle like it wasn't crossing a line. Like we hadn't already crossed one weeks ago. The first time was at the holiday party. Too many drinks. An empty conference room. The heat of his hand on my waist when he laughed at something I said. I remember the sound of the door clicking shut behind us. I remember how our laughter stopped. I told myself it meant nothing. But now, weeks later, here he was. Too close. Again. He leaned over me to glance at my screen, his shoulder brushing mine. That subtle pressure sent a jolt through me. My breath caught. He smelled like cedar and something warmer. Like skin warmed by sun. Or maybe I was imagining it. "You're missing a bracket," he murmured. I didn't hear the words. I felt his voice against my neck. I turned my head slightly and there we were. Inches apart. His eyes dropped to my lips before he pulled away. Slow, like he wanted me to feel the space between us reappear. "I should go," he said. But he didn't move. I swallowed. My hands were trembling slightly. "Yeah, me too." Still, neither of us moved. The air between us tightened, heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. Every moment we didn't touch was another thread pulled tight. One more second and the whole thing would snap. He looked at me and there was something different in his gaze this time. Not heat. Not hunger. Something softer. Regret, maybe. Or warning. "We can't keep doing this," he said. I nodded. "I know." He hesitated. "But you want to." My voice was barely a whisper. "Don't you?" That moment, that tiny sliver of stillness before a storm, hung between us like a held breath. And then he reached for my hand. I should have pulled my hand away. But I didn't. Because the truth is, I liked the way his fingers found mine, firm, unhurried. As if he already knew I wouldn't resist. It wasn't a grab. It was an invitation. And I took it, knowing exactly what I was doing. Or maybe not knowing at all. Maybe that was the danger of it, the illusion of control. He didn't say anything. Just let his thumb brush lightly over the back of my hand, like he was reading me through skin. My pulse was a steady throb in my ears, louder than the office silence. Every sound felt amplified. The click of a distant keyboard, the faint hum of the vending machine, the whisper of his breath as he looked at me like I was the only thing that existed. We weren't supposed to be alone. Not again. After that first time, we swore we'd keep it professional. That was the deal. That was our boundary. But rules like that only exist when you believe in them. We'd already stopped believing weeks ago. He stepped back, pulling me gently with him. My chair rolled a little as I stood. My legs felt strangely unsteady, like my body knew more than my mind was ready to admit. He didn't say where we were going and I didn't ask. We just moved slowly, quietly, down the hallway like two people walking towards something they'd already decided. The meeting room was empty. Lights off. Only the city outside gave it shape. We stepped inside, and the door clicked shut behind us like it had that first night. It made me flinch. He noticed. "I can stop," he said, his voice low. But his hand was still on mine. "I know," I whispered. "I just don't want you to." There was a pause, not long but deep. Like we both knew what came next wasn't just a moment. It was a choice. And we'd already made it. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. His knuckles grazed my jaw, and the contact sent a tremble down my spine. Not from cold, but from recognition. From remembering exactly how his touch made me feel the last time. "I think about that night too much," he said. My lips parted, but no words came out. What could I say? That I replayed it like a scene I couldn't quit watching? That sometimes, alone in my apartment, I felt the ghost of his hand on my back? Instead I said, "We said we wouldn't do this again." His eyes met mine. And we meant it until now. That was the thing with us. It wasn't just attraction. It was gravity. He didn't pull me in, I fell. Every time. He moved closer, and this time when our bodies brushed, we didn't pretend it was accidental. My breath hitched. His hand found the curve of my waist, resting there with the weight of a memory. My chest rose against his. But still no kiss. Not yet. That was his favorite kind of cruelty, making me wait. Letting the tension stretch until I didn't know if I was trembling from desire, or from how badly I wanted him to break the silence. And then he said something that hit harder than any touch. "What are we doing, really?" I swallowed. The heat in my chest turned colder. "You mean, are we just a mistake we keep making?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Because that was the first moment I realized this wasn't just temptation anymore. It was something deeper. And way more dangerous. There's a moment, right before something irreversible, when the world goes quiet. Not silent. Just muffled. Like every sound is underwater. My thoughts, his breath, even the rush in my ears. All of it softened, smudged at the edges. As if the universe wanted to give us one final warning. One last chance to step away. We didn't take it. His hand was still at my waist. Mine had somehow ended up against his chest, not pushing him away, just resting there. Feeling the slow, steady beat of his heart. It was too calm. Like he'd already made peace with whatever came next. But me? I was chaos inside. 1,000 thoughts crashing, clawing, screaming over one another. What if someone finds out? What if I get hurt? What if he doesn't feel this the way I do? What if he does? "I think about you when I shouldn't," he said. The words were soft, but they landed heavy. Right in the middle of my chest. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. "Sometimes I'm talking to someone," he went on. "In a meeting, on a call, doesn't matter. And out of nowhere I remember the way you looked that night. That exact moment when you stopped pretending you didn't want me." His voice was deeper now, more certain. And suddenly I wasn't cold anymore. My skin was heat. Tight, tingling, alive under his gaze. "And now," he added, stepping impossibly closer, "I can't stop thinking about how you're looking at me right now." As I was. Looking at him like I had no defenses left. Like he already knew the answer to every question I hadn't asked yet. I felt my lips part just slightly. A nervous breath. A silent yes. He leaned in, but only enough to hover. His forehead almost touched mine. Not kissing. Just breathing me in. Letting that tension build again. Slow, deliberate, cruel. I closed my eyes. And then a sound. A door. Somewhere down the hall. We both froze. My heart stopped. My eyes flew open. He looked at me, searching my face for a reaction, for a decision. And in that second, everything in me wanted to pull him close and say, "Screw it. Let the world find out. Let it all burn." But instead, I stepped back. Barely. Enough to say I still had control. Enough to lie to myself. He took a breath, steadying. "We should go." I nodded. "Yeah." But neither of us moved right away. Because leaving that room meant stepping back into our roles. Back into the performance. Pretending nothing had happened. Again. Just before we opened the door, he paused. "I wasn't kidding, you know," he said. "About what? You look at me like you want me to be your mistake. But I don't want to be a mistake." That hit harder than anything else that night. Because I didn't know what I wanted him to be. and that terrified me more than any secret could. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed, watching the ceiling breathe shadows, feeling the phantom heat of his touch under my skin. My body was still wound tight, like it hadn't come down from whatever almost happened between us. My thoughts were a carousel of what-ifs, none of them innocent. I should have felt guilty, but what I felt was hunger. Not for his body, not just that. For the way he looked at me when he thought no one else could see. For the way I felt when he stood close, like gravity shifted and suddenly the rest of the world was just noise. The next morning we didn't speak. Not really. He passed me in the hallway, gave a nod, a glance, nothing more. But his eyes lingered just half a second longer than they should have. It was small, invisible to anyone else. But I felt it like a hand pressed low on my spine. The worst part? I was starting to crave that silence between us. That loaded, electric, unspeakable space where everything was possible, and nothing was allowed. And it only got worse. That afternoon I was pulled into a meeting with him. Just the two of us. Glass walls, open office, sunlight streaming in, too bright, too honest. I sat across from him, forcing myself to focus on the numbers on the screen, not the way he rolled his sleeves again or how his fingers tapped slow against the table. A rhythm that felt like a pulse between us. He didn't say anything inappropriate. Didn't touch me. Didn't even flirt. But there was something in the way he avoided my gaze that said more than 1,000 words. He was trying. And failing. Just like me. Halfway through the meeting I dropped my pen. He bent to grab it at the same time I did, and our hands met skin on skin. A lightning strike. I looked up and his face was right there. Too close. And suddenly I wasn't thinking about the project. Or the risk. Or even the meeting. I was thinking about that damn conference room. The way his mouth almost met mine. The look in his eyes when he said he didn't want to be a mistake. I whispered, "We have to stop." He didn't flinch. Just nodded slowly. But then he whispered back, "Then stop thinking about me like that." My breath caught. Like that. He saw it. Knew it. The way I watched him when I thought I was being careful. The heat behind my sarcasm. The hesitation in my voice when he got too close. He stood, ending the meeting early. Before he left, he paused at the door. Not facing me. Just standing there. And he said, "You're not the only one who's scared." Then he walked out, leaving me in a room full of sunlight, shadows, and the terrifying possibility that this thing between us might actually be real. Something changed after that meeting. Not out loud. Not in anything we said. But in how we existed near each other. It was like we'd both stepped too close to the edge and couldn't unsee the drop. Every moment after that became sharper, quieter, more dangerous. Like the silence had teeth. He started avoiding me. Or trying to. No more lingering in doorways. No more half-smiles. No casual texts at odd hours. But I still caught him watching. From across the break room, behind his laptop, in meetings, during team dinners, always just long enough for my breath to catch. Then he'd look away like nothing happened. I told myself I needed that distance. I lied. One night, after another long day and too much wine, I opened my phone. My finger hovered over his name in my messages. I didn't text him. I called. The second the line connected, I panicked. My breath hitched. But then his voice. "Hey." Just that. Soft. Barely a word. But it unraveled me. "I can't stop thinking about you," I said, like it had been waiting on my tongue for days. He was quiet for a beat. Then, "You're not the only one." Silence again. Then he asked, "What are you thinking about?" I hesitated. Everything in me wanted to say it. To spill every secret thought. Every time I pictured him behind me at the copy machine, too close. Every moment I imagined his hands on my hips instead of the keyboard. Every time I played out that unfinished kiss from the conference room. Over and over, like some fevered loop I couldn't break. But instead I said, "Us. What we'd be like. If we stopped pretending." His breath came through the line, slow, shaky. "I've thought about that," he said. I closed my eyes. "Tell me," I whispered. There was a long pause. Not hesitation. Something else. Like he was building the courage to admit something he couldn't take back. "I think about you in my apartment," he said. "Wearing one of my shirts, hair messy, coffee in your hands. I think about waking up next to you and watching your face before you open your eyes." My heart cracked a little. He wasn't describing a hookup. He wasn't describing sex. He was describing intimacy, a fantasy he wasn't supposed to have, and one I'd secretly had too. I think about your laugh, he added. That one you do when you're pretending not to be flattered. And I think about what it would be like if I didn't have to walk away every time I got too close. I swallowed hard. Neither of us said anything for a while. The line stayed open. Just breath and silence. And every unsaid thing between us. Finally he said, "This can't stay like this forever." And I answered, "Then maybe we stop pretending it's temporary." But even as I said it, I felt the weight of what it meant. Because nothing between us had ever just been about the moment. It was always about what came next. The day after that phone call, everything felt different. Not dramatic, not obvious, but quieter, charged. Like the air between us was full of something we couldn't name, not yet. A question that hadn't been asked but was hanging there anyway, waiting to be answered. I saw him in the elevator. Just us. He didn't say a word. Just glanced at me, jaw tight, hands in his pockets. I could feel the weight of everything we hadn't done yet pressing into the space between us. The ride lasted 20 floors. Neither of us breathed. When the doors opened, he let me walk out first. That was the thing with him, always composed. Always on the edge of something that never fully unraveled. Until it did. That night he texted me. Him. Come over. I stared at it for 5 minutes. Then I replied. Me? Are you sure? Him. No. But I want to. I was already grabbing my coat before I typed. On my way. His apartment was quieter than I expected. Clean. Understated. A few books stacked on a side table. A blanket thrown carelessly over the couch. I took it all in like I was memorizing a secret part of him. He opened the door in a plain black t-shirt. Simple. Familiar. Dangerous. Hey, he said softly. I stepped in. Didn't take my shoes off. Didn't speak. We just looked at each other like we didn't know who would move first. And then he did something that undid me. He reached out and brushed his thumb gently across my cheek. It wasn't seductive. It was tender. It was worse. Because it meant this wasn't about lust. It never really had been. He led me to the couch. Sat close but didn't touch. Like he was waiting for permission. Or confession. So I gave him both. I've been dreaming about you, I said. And not just the way you think. His eyes flickered. Then tell me. I dream you're asleep, I said. And I'm just watching you breathe. Listening to the quiet. Feeling like I finally let myself want something without ruining it. He didn't say anything. Then he whispered. You didn't ruin it. And just like that I felt tears sting my eyes. Because somewhere deep down I'd been waiting for him to say exactly that. But then he hesitated. Shifted. Like there was something heavy on his chest. I need to tell you something, he said. I sat still, everything in me tightening. Okay. He looked down at his hands. There's someone else. A beat of silence. Not like that, he added quickly. It's not serious. It never was. I didn't know how to end it. And then you happened. I nodded slowly. My chest was a wildfire of emotions. Jealousy, confusion, something like betrayal. Even though I had no right to feel any of it. He looked up. I haven't touched her since that night with you. I believed him. And that somehow made it worse. Because now the lines weren't just blurred, they were erased. I should leave, I said. But I didn't move. And neither did he. Because we both knew we had passed the point of return. And whatever happened next, we wouldn't be able to undo. I didn't leave. I sat there silent, skin buzzing, thoughts crashing into each other like waves with no shore to break on. There was someone else. He wasn't mine, not officially, not really, but hearing it out loud still hit something raw in me. A part of me I didn't even realize I'd handed over to him. Quietly. Recklessly. Without a name. He watched me waiting. For judgment maybe. For a reaction he could prepare himself for. But all I said was, then why did you invite me here? His throat moved as he swallowed. Because I couldn't not. And somehow that was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. I stood, walking to the window. The city was glowing beneath us. All those lives happening at once. None of them knowing what this moment meant to me. what it meant to us. You should have told me sooner, I whispered. I know. A pause. She doesn't know about me, does she? I asked, turning toward him. No, he said softly. But she knows I've been gone for a while, even when I'm there. That ache in his voice, it hit something cruel in me. As I understood it, I had been gone in my own ways too, pretending to live while part of me stayed suspended in that conference room, in that elevator, in every unfinished sentence between us. I stepped toward him, one step, then another, until I was standing in front of him, close enough to see the quiet apology in his eyes. I hate that this feels right, I said. His hand found mine again. Always that first touch. Always slow, careful, like asking a question he already knew the answer to. I know, he said. I leaned in. Not all the way. Just enough that my forehead rested against his. My breath caught when I felt him exhale. You should stop me, I whispered. I can't. And then the space between us disappeared. Not rushed. Not desperate. But inevitable. His mouth met mine with the kind of hunger that comes from months of silence. A kiss that didn't ask for permission, because it was born from everything we had denied. His hands weren't possessive. They were reverent, like he was holding something sacred. And mine trembled against his back, memorizing every curve, every inch I had dreamed of in the dark. He pulled back first. Barely. His voice was a breath against my lips. I've wanted this since the moment you walked in late that Monday morning. Hair wet. No makeup. Coffee in your hand like it was the only thing keeping you upright. I closed my eyes. Then why didn't you do something? I asked. I did, he said. I fell for you. Quietly. Hopelessly. Every single day. And with that, whatever was left of the line between us vanished. We crossed it. Not just physically but emotionally. Spiritually. We weren't playing anymore. We weren't pretending it was just attraction. It was need. It was us. And I knew whatever came next we couldn't go back. I woke up in his bed. Not with the rush of morning after panic. Not with regret clawing at my chest. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you notice the soft weight of a blanket pulled halfway down your back. The way the light filters through the blinds and dances on the floor. The sound of someone breathing beside you like they finally exhaled after holding it in for too long. He was still asleep, turned toward me, arm across his pillow, like his body was unconsciously reaching for mine even in dreams. And in that moment I felt everything at once. The warmth. The fear. The weight of what we'd done. The tenderness of what it meant. I studied his face, the softness in his brow, the curve of his lips slightly parted. And I knew in a way I hadn't let myself before, that this wasn't just a mistake. This was a shift. The kind that doesn't leave you untouched. When he stirred, he didn't speak right away. He just opened his eyes slowly, like waking up next to me wasn't new, like we'd done this 100 times before. And maybe, in some way we had, in all those moments we imagined but never spoke out loud. You're still here, he said, voice low, raw. Yeah, I whispered. I didn't want to leave. He brushed a strand of hair from my face and I closed my eyes. Not because I was tired but because it felt too real. Too much. Too soon. You don't have to say anything, he said. Not yet. But I wanted to. So I did. I don't know what happens next, I admitted. I don't know if we're brave enough to face it. But I know I'm tired of pretending I don't want you. His hand slid down my arm, slow, deliberate, until our fingers found each other again. Then don't, he said. Let's stop pretending. There was a pause, not between us but inside me. A moment of stillness. Of clarity. I had lied to myself for so long. Told myself this was temporary. That it was a distraction. A beautiful, dangerous, unforgettable mistake. But now? Now I knew the truth. We weren't a secret anymore. We were a beginning. Even if the world wouldn't understand. Even if it got messy. Even if we fell apart someday, this right now was real. And that was enough. For now. If you made it to the end of this story, tell me what part hit you the hardest. Have you ever crossed a line you couldn't uncross? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want more stories like this. Your support means everything. Until next time.